Hey everyone! This is a quick reminder to subscribe and hit that like button. It lets me know that you are enjoying my content. Also, feel free to drop your suggestions for future stories in the comments below. Thank you for listening, and let's dive right in. Nature has always been my escape. Ever since I was a kid, my parents made sure my sister and I spent weekends outside. Camping trips, fishing, hiking. It was never anything extravagant. Just a tent, a warm sleeping bag, and the scent of pine and fresh air instead of car exhaust and streetlights. Some of my favorite memories are from those trips. My dad gutting a freshly caught fish while my mom prepped the fire, my sister and I sneaking extra marshmallows before bedtime. I don't think I realized how special those moments were until they were gone. My parents never quit camping, even after we left for college. We thought it was romantic in a way that they still did that together. Most people I know don't have parents who actually like each other, let alone still go on weekend camping trips like teenagers in love. Then one weekend, they didn't come back. No texts, no calls, nothing. Authorities found their tent exactly where it should have been. Untouched, gear still packed, food supply intact, no signs of a struggle, no blood, no clues. It was as if they had simply stood up and walked away. They were never found. My sister shattered. She dropped out of college, spiraled into shitty jobs and even shittier habits. It took me 2 years to help put her back together, and even now, I don't think she's truly healed. She's better. She's living again. That's something. Me? I guess we all deal with grief in our own ways. After college, I applied for a job as a park ranger at Denali National Park, the last place we camped together as a family. It sounds strange, doesn't it? Why return to the place that took them from me? But somehow, it felt like the only way I could still be close to them. I know they'd be proud of me. Denali is breathtaking, the kind of place that humbles you, where the mountains stretch forever, and the air is so crisp it makes your lungs ache in the best way. I fell in love with it instantly. And the people here? Some of the best I've ever met. Especially Mike. Mike was my mentor when I started. Gruff but kind, a little too comfortable with putting his boots on the office desk. I'll never forget my first day, walking into that tiny park office and seeing him grinning at me, a toothpick shifting between his teeth. "You must be Avery," he said, standing up and stretching like he'd been napping. I nodded. "Well, Avery," he clapped me on the shoulder, "let's go. We got a lot to talk about." He took me on a trail ride, explaining the job as we went, patrolling, guiding hikers, keeping the park clean. Normal ranger duties. Then, before we left the office, he handed me a laminated piece of paper. Park rules. I read the first one. It was normal enough. 1. Visitors are only allowed to camp in designated campsites or with a special off-trail permit. Made sense. Every park has rules like that. Then I looked at the next one. 2. If you hear whispers at night, ignore them. I frowned. That was weird. The third rule made my stomach twist. 3. Do not go after the man dressed in a black suit, ever. I glanced up at Mike, waiting for the punchline. He just nodded toward the list. Keep reading. 4. If you see a pair of glowing eyes after sundown, do not run. Wait until they are gone. Number 5. If a hiker in old-fashioned climbing gear gives you a warning, take it seriously. I barked out a laugh. Is this a joke? Mike wasn't laughing. I'll explain later, he said simply. I let it slide, chalking it up to some weird hazing ritual for new hires. The rest of the day, Mike showed me around. The campsites, the trails, the lookout points. But something about those rules lingered in my mind. The way Mike talked about the park, it was like he respected it, almost feared it. Before the day was over, he said something that stuck with me. This place has a mind of its own, he told me. We're just visitors. We respect the park, and it respects us back. I laughed at the time, thought he was a little crazy. But Denali proved me wrong. It didn't take long before I realized those rules weren't just superstition. They were survival. A month into the job, I had just started feeling like I knew what I was doing. The routes made sense, The tasks became second nature, and the park itself started to feel familiar, as if it had accepted me. Then the whispers changed everything. That day had been a busy one. A large tourist group was visiting. Families with kids, hikers, the usual mix of outdoor enthusiasts, and first-time campers who had no idea how unprepared they were. I had spent most of the morning leading a guided hike, making sure no one wandered off or got themselves killed doing something stupid. By the time we returned to the visitor center, I was exhausted. Then I heard the screaming. A mother came running toward me, panic-stricken, voice shaking. My son, he's gone. He was right behind me, I swear. And then he wasn't. Instant adrenaline. The entire staff mobilized immediately, calming the mother, keeping the other tourists from freaking out, and sending search teams out in all directions. The kid was 9 years old. Couldn't have gone far. At least, that's what I told myself. After an hour with no luck, I hopped on an ATV and took off toward Campsite 3, one of the farthest locations we had stopped at that day. It was a long shot, but if he had somehow wandered back there alone, he might be scared and hiding. I reached the site, killed the engine, and took off my helmet. That's when I heard them. The whispers. At first I thought it was the wind, a trick of the trees shifting in the breeze. But there was no wind. The air was completely still, heavy in that unsettling way right before a storm. The whispers came from the bushes, low, muffled, like voices just out of reach. I froze. The laminated list flashed into my mind like a hammer to the skull. Rule number 2. If you hear whispers at night, ignore them. But it wasn't night. I forced myself to stay perfectly still, straining to make out the words, but they were indistinct, layered over each other, overlapping like voices speaking through a wall. A warning, a threat, a trick. I didn't know. Then my walkie-talkie crackled to life. Team 3 here. We found the boy. He was at Campsite 2, taking him back now. The whispers stopped instantly. The sudden silence was worse than the noise. I swallowed hard, shoved my helmet back on, and gunned the ATV back toward the station. I couldn't stop thinking about it. I wanted to believe it was just my imagination, that exhaustion was making me hear things. But the way the whispers vanished the second the boy was found? That wasn't coincidence. That was timed. That was intentional. Later that night, I cornered Mike in the office. "Have you ever heard them?" I asked. He didn't even look up from his paperwork. "Yeah," he said casually, like I had just asked if he'd ever heard an owl before. That was it. No further explanation. No, don't worry, it's nothing to reassure me. Just yeah, many times. I wanted to ask more, to press him for details, but something in his tone warned me not to. So I dropped it. But I knew then, the rules weren't a joke. They were real. And that meant everything else on that list was real too, including the things I hadn't seen yet. By the time I hit the 2-month mark at Denali, I had seen my fair share of strange things. The whispers, the feeling of the park watching me, the occasional eerie silence that made my skin crawl. But none of it compared to what happened next. It started with a visitor. A man in his late 30s who approached me while I was making my usual rounds at Campsite 1. "You don't do funerals here, do you?" he asked. I let out a small chuckle, assuming he was joking. "No, we do not. Why are you asking?" His face didn't change. I saw this guy, dressed in black. Far away, couldn't get a good look, but it looked like a suit. Something in my stomach twisted. I assured him that no, the park didn't allow funerals, at least not officially. He nodded, muttered something under his breath, and walked away. I tried to shake it off. Probably just some confused hiker, right? Then as I continued making rounds, I overheard 2 women talking near the fire pit. "I swear," one of them said. He was right on the edge of the cliff, like he was about to jump. The other woman scoffed. "Maggie, you're old and your eyes are all wrong." "No, Tammy, I know what I saw." My heartbeat picked up. They weren't talking about just any man. They were talking about him. Rule number 3. Do not go after the man dressed in a black suit, ever. I had no intention of breaking that rule, but I knew what I had to do. make sure no one was actually about to jump. I took my ATV up the trail leading toward the cliffs. It wasn't far. If someone was up there, I'd see them in minutes. And I did, for just a split second. A man in a suit stood at the very edge of the cliff, completely still. Too still. Every instinct screamed at me to stop, to turn around. But before I could react, the man vanished. Not like he walked away. Not like he jumped. One moment he was there. The next he was gone. My stomach lurched as I slammed the brakes so hard I nearly went flying over the handlebars. The engine hummed in the empty silence. I wasn't alone for long. Behind me, the low growl of another ATV approached. It was Sam. He pulled up beside me, turning off his engine, studying my face. "You okay, Avery? You look like you've seen a ghost." I swallowed hard. "I think I just might have." Sam blinked. "What?" I told him. "Everything. The visitor's comment, the women's argument, the man on the cliff." He listened without interrupting, without calling me crazy. When I finished, he let out a slow breath and ran a hand through his hair. "I know what you're thinking," he said, "but don't." I frowned. "Don't what?" "Don't go looking for him." There was something in his voice. Not fear, exactly. Something worse, resignation. "Mike told me," Sam continued, keeping his eyes on the cliffside. "That thing, whatever it is, it lures people to the edge. They go after it, and they don't come back." The wind howled between the trees. I didn't doubt him. Not anymore. By now, I understood one thing. The rules weren't just warnings. They were life or death. And still, people broke them. It was peak camping season, which meant the park was packed with tourists who had no idea what they were doing. Some came prepared. Others saw a few survival videos on YouTube and thought they could handle the Alaskan wilderness like it was their own backyard. That's exactly what happened with the two girls. They showed up at the station one morning, no older than 18, decked out in brand new, overpriced camping gear. The kind of gear that looked like it had been bought yesterday and hadn't seen a day of dirt in its life. They told us they'd be camping for 3 days and planned to go off trail. That was problem number 1. We tried to warn them, told them off-trail camping required a permit, that it wasn't safe. They ignored us, insisting they'd be fine. I made it my job to keep an eye on them. When people like that came through the park, we watched them closely. Not because we wanted to babysit, but because we had seen too many things go wrong. I checked in on them every now and then, making sure they reached their campsites safely. The last time I saw them was on their second night. I drove by their designated site, expecting the worst. A messy campsite, food left out for bears, maybe an argument between two girls who realized they weren't cut out for the wild. I saw them sitting outside their tent, roasting marshmallows over a tiny candle flame. They smiled and waved. Everything seemed fine. That was the last time anyone saw them. The next morning, they were supposed to hike back. It wasn't far, an hour, maybe 2. But they never came. When they missed their checkout time, we went looking. The campsite was empty. Not just empty, but eerily untouched. Their tent was gone, their footprints gone, but their belongings still there. Backpacks, clothes, even the stove was still set up. I placed a hand over the stove, still warm. That meant whatever happened to them had happened fast. The weather turned against us. The sky darkened, the wind picked up, a storm rolled in with a vengeance, rain pouring so hard that it turned the trails into a flooded mess. We called in the rescue team, but anything that had been left behind, tracks, scents, clues, was washed away. We searched for days, no bodies. No signs of struggle. No explanation. They were just gone. After a week, the search was called off. We had nothing to go on. All we could do was gather their belongings, pack them up, and return them to their families. I met their parents, saw the hollow grief in their eyes as I handed over backpacks that would never be used again. I told them how sorry we were. I didn't tell them the truth. Didn't tell them that their daughters broke the rules. Didn't tell them that they weren't the first to disappear like this, and they wouldn't be the last. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about their tent, how it was gone, but everything else remained. How it was just like my parents. Their tent had been untouched, their things still where they left them. But they were never found. A thought crept into my mind, one I couldn't shake. Had my parents broken the rules too, and if they had, was that why the park took them? I liked working with Sam. Unlike most guys I'd met, he never tried to flirt, never made things weird. He was just genuinely nice, the kind of person you felt lucky to have on your team. After what happened to the two girls, I wasn't in the mood to be alone. So when Sam and I were assigned to clean up the last campsite of the season, I was relieved to have his company. The crazy summer rush had died down, leaving the park quieter than usual. There was a stillness in the air, the kind that settled in just before winter took its full hold. We reached the final site right as the sun started dipping below the trees. It was almost sundown, not ideal, but we weren't planning to stay long. Just a quick sweep, pack up any trash, and head back before it got too dark. We were joking around, nothing serious, just light, easy conversation to pass the time. Then I noticed Sam had stopped talking. I turned to look at him, and he was frozen in place, staring at something ahead of us. At first I thought he'd spotted an animal. "Is there a fox?" I asked, keeping my voice low. He didn't respond, didn't even blink. A knot tightened in my stomach. I stepped closer, just enough to see his face clearly. His eyes were wide, his breathing shallow, like he was trying not to move, like he was scared. I followed his gaze. At first I saw nothing, just the dark stretch of trees, their trunks barely visible in the fading light. Then I saw them, two massive glowing green eyes, unblinking, watching. A cold wave of dread crashed over me. Rule number 4, if you see a pair of glowing eyes after sundown, do not run. Wait until they are gone. I whispered the rule to myself, clinging to it like a lifeline. Sam did the opposite. He turned and ran. "No, Sam, stop!" I shouted, but it was too late. He bolted toward the ATV, legs pumping at full speed. He never made it. Something slammed into him from behind, knocking him flat on his stomach. I took a step forward, heart pounding. "Sam!" He tried to scramble to his feet, but then something grabbed his legs. I watched as he was dragged into the dark, kicking, screaming. I wanted to run after him. I wanted to do something. But the eyes were still there, and the one damn rule was clear. Do not run. Wait until they are gone. So I stood there, frozen, watching as my friend disappeared into the trees. The moment his scream stopped, the eyes vanished. Only then did my body unlock. I tore my walkie-talkie from my belt. "Avery to base, emergency. We need backup. Sam's gone. I repeat, Sam is gone." The reply came fast, no questions, no hesitation. "We're on our way." They knew. No one asked what happened. No one questioned how or why. They just knew. We searched the forest until sunrise, and then at the edge of a clearing, we found him, curled up under a pine tree, completely naked. His eyes were vacant, his lips slightly parted. He wasn't asleep, wasn't unconscious, just empty. We tried talking to him, tried getting him to say anything, but he didn't speak. Not that day, not the next, not ever. A week later, he quit. Didn't give notice, didn't say goodbye, just packed his things and left. And I knew then if I ever saw those green eyes again, I wouldn't run, because I knew what happened to those who did. And I wasn't going to end up like Sam. Winter crept in faster than expected, and with it, the park emptied out. Most of the summer crowd had long since packed up, leaving behind only hardcore winter campers and experienced climbers. The quiet was unsettling at first, but I learned to appreciate it. Fewer people meant fewer things going wrong. After Sam quit, we hadn't found a replacement yet, which meant we all had to pick up his shifts. I didn't mind. Being busy helped keep my mind off the things I couldn't explain. That morning, I woke up to a thin layer of snow covering the ground, the first snowfall of the season. By noon, visitors were already rolling in with winter gear, ready to brave the cold. Mike showed up to the office, hand pressed against his palm, bleeding. Some idiot didn't secure his machete properly, he grumbled. Gotta get stitches. I winced. You gonna be okay? He waved a hand. Yeah, but I need you to cover for me for a few hours. I agreed, grabbed my gear, and hopped on an ATV to patrol the trails. The sky was clear, no sign of a storm. That's why I hesitated when I saw him. The hiker. He stood at the break where the main trail split into the climbing route, dressed in bright blue and pink gear, like something straight out of the 1980s. A massive old-school backpack rested on his shoulders. But the thing that caught my attention the most? His sunglasses, big black lenses covering his eyes entirely. He raised a hand and waved. Against my better judgment, I stopped my ATV, turned off the engine. He spoke first. Hey, don't let anyone take the climbing trail today. His voice was calm, friendly, certain. I frowned. Why? There's gonna be a blizzard soon. I glanced up. The sky was blue, crystal clear, not a single cloud in sight. You sure? He smiled. I'm always right. Then he turned to walk away. I barely had a second to process what he said before my walkie crackled to life. Avery? I grabbed it. Yeah? Mike's voice came through. I'm back. We can switch now. I hooked the walkie back to my uniform and looked up. The hiker was gone. Not walking away, not disappearing into the distance. Just gone. And the strangest part? There were no footprints in the snow. I met Mike back at the station and told him about the old-fashioned climber. His expression darkened. Damn. Haven't seen him in ages. So he's real? I asked. Oh, he's real. Mike scratched his chin, and if he really said that, then we need to follow the rules. Rule number 5. If a hiker in old-fashioned climbing gear gives you a warning, take it seriously. I exhaled sharply. Okay, but how do we stop people from going up the trail? We can't exactly block it off, can we? No, Mike admitted. But we have a warning sign. We can put it up and hope for the best. Hope for the best. That didn't sit right with me. We grabbed the sign from storage, loaded up the ATVs, and drove back to the trailhead. And of course, there were already campers there, gearing up for a climb. Mike stopped them before they could head up. Listen, he said, voice firm. We got a warning about a possible blizzard rolling in. You might want to rethink your route. Most of them hesitated, but one guy in his 40s scoffed. You really believe that? Come on, it's a clear day. He turned to the others. Are you really afraid of a little snow? The group started arguing. Most of them decided to take the safe trail, but the overconfident guy managed to convince one other person to go with him up the climbing path. The weather's fine, he said. We didn't drive all this way just to turn around. And with that, they disappeared up the trail. Mike sighed, shaking his head. That's the last time they'll be seen. I stared at him. You really believe that? He gave me a knowing look. You still don't believe after what happened to Sam? I did believe. I believed in the whispers, the black-suited man, the green eyes in the dark, and now I believed in the hiker. The blizzard hit within an hour. It came out of nowhere. Blinding snow, brutal winds, temperatures plummeting. It snowed for 2 days straight. By the time the storm finally passed, half the season's snowfall had already hit the ground. I was out sick for a few days, but when I returned, Mike told me what I already knew. The 2 climbers were missing. The rescue team couldn't find them. The snow was too deep, and just like that, they were gone. People go missing in Denali all the time. Some are accidents, some are avoidable. These 2, they had been warned, they just didn't listen. And for that, they paid the price. But I still had one lingering question. Did my parents break the rules too? And if they did, was that why the park took them?